My cruel stepmother killed my mother, and now she wants to take control of my father's $200 million business. When I exposed her, she got so angry, she grabbed me and threw me off the balcony, shouting, "Your game is over." I fell into the garden below, hurting myself a little, but I was okay. I promised myself I would get revenge. The next day, when she woke up, she was shocked by something that changed everything. My name is Lily Thomas. I'm 22, and for most of my life, I thought I had everything I could want. I grew up in a nice house in a fancy part of New York City with my dad, Thomas Thomas. He wasn't just my dad, he was my hero. He built his $200 million business from scratch, and watching him work so hard always inspired me. For years, it was just the two of us. My mom, Grace Thomas, passed away when I was 10. Her death was really hard, but my dad and I leaned on each other to get through it. We had a strong bond. Then Rachel came into our lives. Rachel Thomas, my stepmother, was everything you'd expect from a rich woman, glamorous, friendly, and perfect. Dad met her at a charity event a few years ago, and she caught his eye. At first, I was happy for him. He deserved to find love again. And Rachel seemed kind and supportive. She even tried to get close to me, giving me gifts and asking about my life, but something about her always seemed fake. Looking back, I see the signs now, but I ignored them. Maybe I didn't want to seem like the jealous daughter. Maybe I didn't want to hurt my dad. Either way, I told myself Rachel was just trying to fit into our family. For a while, things seemed fine, happy, even. Rachel got really involved in my dad's business. She made him think she cared about his work, his dreams, and his company. She encouraged him to make bigger investments and take risks. He trusted her completely. But then things started changing. It started with small things. Rachel would say things about me to my dad, making him doubt me. She'd say I was ungrateful or didn't appreciate what he did for me. At first, I ignored it, thinking she was just being a concerned stepmom. But those little comments added up, and I noticed my dad looking at me differently, asking questions in ways he never had before. Around the same time, I noticed how involved Rachel was with my dad's finances. She knew everything about his deals and had access to his accounts. She would even suggest risky new projects. I didn't think much of it until I overheard her talking on the phone. She was speaking quietly, talking about money transfers and changes. Her voice was cold, not like the sweet woman she pretended to be around my dad. I thought I was overreacting, but something felt off. That feeling grew when I found an email on Rachel's laptop. It was from Martin Clark, my dad's biggest rival. Martin is known for using dirty tricks to hurt his competition. The email was short but clear. They were working together. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. Rachel, my stepmother, was helping my dad's enemy. I didn't know what to do. How could I confront her without proof? And even if I did, would my dad believe me? Rachel had already been turning him against me. If I went to him with just suspicions, she'd twist it to make me look crazy. So I decided to find more proof. I started watching Rachel carefully, looking for any sign of what she was doing, and that's when I saw how dangerous she really was. One day, when Rachel was out, I searched her room. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't care. I had to know the truth. What I found shocked me. There were financial documents, secret bank accounts, and emails between Rachel and Martin. They were planning to move $200 million of my dad's money into accounts they controlled. They were going to ruin him and run away. But it didn't stop there. As I read more emails, I discovered something darker. Rachel had been involved in my mom's death. My mom's death had always been called an accident, but the emails showed Rachel had planned it. She wanted my dad, and his money, from the start. I couldn't breathe. The woman I had tried so hard to accept as family was a monster. She had been manipulating my dad, trying to destroy him, and she had already taken my mom from me. I knew I had to act, but I didn't know where to start. I tried talking to my dad, but it didn't go well. "Lily, this is crazy," he said when I told him Rachel was hiding something. "She loves us. Why would she hurt this family?"
I wanted to scream, but I kept it together. That was when I realized Rachel had done more than mess with my dad's business. She had manipulated his feelings. He couldn't see her for who she really was. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt more alone than ever, but I also felt something else, determination. Rachel might have fooled my dad, but she wasn't going to fool me. I was going to find a way to stop her, no matter what it took. What I didn't know was how far Rachel would go to protect her secrets, and how dangerous she really was. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rachel's face and thought about the emails I had read. The fact that she was planning to ruin my dad, and had something to do with my mom's death, haunted me. I had to do something, but I couldn't be reckless. Rachel had already turned my dad against me in subtle ways. If I made one wrong move, she would use it against me. I decided to lay low. Rachel was sharp, and if she noticed anything different, she would know I was onto her. I acted like everything was normal. I said good morning to her, had polite chats at dinner, and even smiled when she asked about my studies. It was tiring, but I knew I needed time to gather real proof. So, I started digging into Rachel's life. I checked her laptop when she left it unattended, copied files to a USB drive, and even took photos of documents I found in her closet. The more I uncovered, the worse things looked. Rachel had been planning this for years. She had worked her way into my father's life, gained his trust, and taken control of his finances. She and Martin Clark were planning to steal the $200 million my dad had worked so hard for. But it wasn't just about money. Rachel had personal reasons too. I found one email where she wrote to Martin, "Once we finish this, Richard will have nothing left, just me. He won't even care about that little brat of a daughter." My stomach turned. She didn't just want the money, she wanted to tear our family apart. Then one evening, I found something even worse in Rachel's closet. It was an old folder with records of my mom's life insurance and details about the car accident that had killed her. There were notes written in Rachel's handwriting about when the accident should happen and a payment made to someone I didn't know. My mom's death had always felt sudden, but now I knew it wasn't an accident. Rachel had planned it to get my dad and his fortune. I felt sick. Betrayal didn't even begin to describe what I felt. The woman I had trusted was a murderer. I wanted to confront her right then and there, to scream at her, to tell my dad everything, but I knew I couldn't. She was too good at twisting things, and I didn't have enough proof yet, not until I had everything. So, I kept going. I collected emails, bank records, anything that could link Rachel to her crimes. I even started recording our conversations when she wasn't paying attention. It wasn't easy. Every day felt like a tightrope walk. Rachel seemed to notice something was up. She started asking more questions, watching me more closely, and making little comments to put me down. One night, she cornered me in the kitchen. "Lily," she said with a cold smile, "you've been so quiet lately. Is everything okay?" "Of course," I said, lying and forcing a smile, "just busy with school." Her smile grew, but her eyes stayed cold. "Good. I'd hate to think you were distracted by anything. You should focus on what really matters." I nodded, my heart racing. Rachel was suspicious, but she didn't know what I was doing. Not yet. Things came to a head when I overheard Rachel and Martin on a video call. I was coming downstairs to get some water when I heard their voices from the study. The door was slightly open, and I froze, listening. "Everything's on track," Rachel was saying. "The transfers will be done next week. Once it's over, Richard will be finished." "And the daughter?" Martin asked. "She's a nuisance," Rachel said, "but she won't be a problem much longer." I didn't wait to hear more. I ran back upstairs, my mind racing. Rachel was planning something. I didn't know exactly what, but I felt the danger closing in. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about what I should do next. I needed to warn my dad, but I couldn't go to him without solid proof. Rachel was too good at lying. I decided to wait a few more days to get the last bit of evidence. But Rachel didn't give me the chance. The next night, she came into my room. I was sitting on my bed, scrolling through my phone, when she walked in without knocking. She looked furious. "You've been snooping, haven't you?" she asked, her voice cold. "I don't know what you mean," I said, trying to stay calm. "Don't play dumb, Lily," she snapped. "I know you've been looking into things you shouldn't." I stood up, my heart pounding. "What are you so afraid of, Rachel? That I'll tell Dad the truth? That he'll see you for who you really are?" Her face twisted with rage. "You think you're clever, don't you? But you don't understand who you're dealing with." Before I could respond, she lunged at me. I stumbled back, and she shoved me toward the open balcony door. I tried to grab onto something, but it was too late. I fell. I don't remember hitting the ground. When I woke up, I was lying in the garden, dazed and in pain, but somehow, I was alive. Rachel must have thought I was dead, because she wasn't there when I opened my eyes. As I lay in the garden, pain coursing through my body, One thought blazed in my mind: I had to stop her, no matter what. When I woke up, every part of me hurt, my head spun, and my heart raced as the reality hit. Rachel had tried to kill me. She didn't just want to silence me, she wanted me gone, but she had failed. I was alive, and now nothing could stop me from exposing her. I dragged myself back inside, careful not to make a sound. I couldn't let Rachel know I had survived. Limping to my room, I locked the door behind me and collapsed onto the floor. My injuries weren't life-threatening, just cuts, bruises, and soreness from the fall, but my mind was racing. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Rachel wasn't just a liar and a thief, she was a murderer. I had to act quickly, but I had to be smart. The next morning, I pretended nothing had happened. I stayed in my room, claiming I was sick. Rachel didn't come to check on me, which told me either she thought I had fallen by accident, or worse, that I wouldn't dare speak out. Either way, it gave me an advantage, however small. I spent the day organizing the evidence I had gathered: emails, bank records, notes, pieces that painted a damning picture of Rachel's scheme with Martin Caldwell. I also found a voice memo from the night I overheard their conversation in the study. It was shaky, but it clearly captured Rachel's words: "Richard will be wiped out." This wasn't just my proof, it was my lifeline. But I knew evidence alone wasn't enough. I needed to make sure Rachel couldn't manipulate my dad when I confronted her. I needed witnesses. That's when the idea for the upcoming charity gala hit me. It was the perfect opportunity. Dad's business associates, family friends, and even the media would be there. Rachel wouldn't be able to wiggle out of it if I exposed her in front of everyone. In the days leading up to the gala, I stayed out of Rachel's way, playing the role of the obedient, clueless stepdaughter. Every interaction with her was a performance. She smiled at me with false warmth, pretending everything was normal, but I could see through her act now. She was watching me, trying to figure out if I knew. Little did she know, I had already planned her downfall. The gala. On the day of the gala, I was ready. I organized the evidence into a clear presentation, brought copies of key documents on a flash drive, and even rehearsed my speech. It had to be direct, undeniable, and leave no room for Rachel to twist the truth. This was my moment to expose her, save my dad, and get justice for my mom. That evening, I walked into the grand ballroom with my head held high. Rachel was already there, charming the guests. She didn't even look at me, too busy playing the perfect hostess. Dad, oblivious as always, stood beside her. I felt a pang of sadness for him. He had no idea what Rachel had done, what she was capable of, but he would, soon. As the evening went on, I waited for the right moment. The room was packed with influential people, business partners, journalists, and family friends. Finally, I stepped onto the stage, gripping the microphone. My heart raced, but I focused on the task ahead. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice steady despite my trembling hands, "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's something important I need to share." The room went silent. All eyes turned to me. Dad looked confused, but Rachel's face froze. For the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. "This isn't easy for me to say," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "but there's something you need to know about Rachel Spencer." The truth was about to come out. There was no turning back. "I have proof," I said, scanning the crowd, "that Rachel has been lying to all of us. She's not who she claims to be." Rachel stepped forward, her anger obvious. "Emma, stop this nonsense right now," she snapped, her voice sharp and commanding. But I stood my ground. "This is not nonsense," I said firmly, pulling out the flash drive. "On this drive, you'll find emails, bank records, and even a recording of Rachel plotting to destroy my father's business. And that's not all." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. "Rachel is responsible for my mother's death," I said, my voice shaking just slightly. Gasps filled the room, and Dad took a step back, pale and stunned. Rachel's calm mask cracked completely. "You don't know what you're talking about," she shouted, her voice shrill. But it was too late. I plugged the flash drive into the projector, and the screen behind me lit up with the evidence: emails between Rachel and Martin, bank transfers, the voice memo from the study. The room erupted in murmurs, and Dad turned to Rachel, his expression one of shock and disbelief. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Rachel stammered, trying to explain, but there was no way out. The truth was out, and Rachel's reign of manipulation was finally over. I glanced at Rachel, her smile had vanished, and her eyes darted around the room, searching for a way out, but there was none. My stepmother, Rachel Spencer, I began. My voice steady despite the storm of emotion swirling inside me, has been hiding something terrible from all of us. Tonight, I'm here to tell you the truth. A murmur rippled through the crowd, but I pressed on. I didn't have time for fear. I had to say everything. Rachel has been working with Martin Caldwell, my father's biggest business rival. Together, they've been plotting to steal $200 million from my father's company, dismantling everything he's worked for. Gasps echoed through the room. My dad stood frozen, his face pale with disbelief. "Emma, what are you talking about?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I have proof," I said, forcing myself to stay calm. Reaching into my purse, I pulled out a flash drive and handed it to the event's AV technician. "Please, show everyone the files." The technician hesitated but nodded, inserting the flash drive into the system. The large screen behind me flickered to life. Emails between Rachel and Martin appeared first, detailing their plan to siphon my dad's assets into offshore accounts. Next were financial records, showing suspicious transfers linked to Rachel. The final slide was a recording of Rachel's voice. "Once it's done, Richard will be wiped out." The room fell into stunned silence. I turned back to the audience, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "This isn't just about money. Rachel has gone further than any of us could have imagined. She's not only betrayed my father, but she also had a hand in the death of my mother, Sophia Spencer. Her death wasn't an accident. It was planned." Another wave of shocked whispers spread through the crowd. My dad staggered back a step, his face contorted with disbelief. "Emma, is this true?" he asked, barely able to whisper. I didn't have to answer. Rachel's reaction said it all. She lunged toward me, her voice sharp and venomous. "You don't know what you're talking about, you little brat. You're making this up." Before she could reach me, two uniformed police officers stepped forward. I had contacted them earlier and shared all the evidence. They had been waiting in the wings for this exact moment. "Rachel Spencer," one officer said, his tone firm, "you're under arrest for conspiracy, embezzlement, and attempted murder." Rachel's face crumpled in desperation. "Richard, you can't believe this," she cried, turning to my dad. "You know I'd never hurt you." "She's lying." But my dad didn't move. His face was a mixture of pain and anger as he stared at her, realization dawning in his eyes. "How could you?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "How could you do this to me, to Emma?" Rachel had no answer. The officers placed her in handcuffs and began leading her away. The room erupted into chaos, murmurs, gasps, disbelief, but I barely heard them. My heart was pounding, my hands trembling. It was over. The lies, the manipulation, the fear, it was all over. The aftermath. In the days that followed, Rachel's accomplice, Martin Caldwell, was arrested, the stolen assets were recovered, and my dad's company was saved, but the damage Rachel had done to our family wasn't so easily repaired. Dad and I had a lot to work through. He was devastated, not just by Rachel's betrayal, but by the role he had played in letting her into our lives. He carried the guilt of doubting me when I had tried to warn him. One evening, as we sat in the living room, he turned to me, his face etched with regret. "I'm so sorry, Emma," he said quietly. "I should have believed you. I let her blind me to the truth." "It's not your fault," I replied, though part of me still ached. "She fooled both of us, but we're still here. We can rebuild, together." And we did. Slowly, we began to heal. Dad threw himself into his work, making his business stronger than ever. Meanwhile, I returned to college with a renewed sense of purpose. Rachel's betrayal had scarred us, but it also reminded me of the importance of resilience, truth, and justice. The wound she left would never fully disappear, but as Dad and I looked forward, one thing was clear: we were stronger now. Together, we were rebuilding, not just our family, but our trust, determined to protect what truly mattered. This was our story, a story of betrayal, greed, and redemption, a story of truth winning over lies, and a story of resilience in the face of darkness.